Selling technology to schools can be frustrating. First, you submit multiple proposals, then you have to go through endless committees and approval process, only to find out that you've become bid fodder, losing to an insider who already had the contract. Now, I recently spoke to Terry McFarland and Jack Knocke, who let me in on an IoT platform and sales process that changes all of that. In fact, he recently sold a $12 million deal to a district of 28 K-12 schools, and he did it quickly by leveraging a powerful influencer that gave him the inside track. And the IoT and AI platform they sold literally locks them in with the school. In fact, now all new technology must use their platform. So if you've been wondering how to sell IoT and AI managed services, then this episode is designed just for you. So just head on over to podcast.iotplaybook.com, where I'll show you the actual playbooks that IoT managed service providers are using to make 7 figures or more of recurring revenue right now. All right. Hey, this is Mark Smith from IoT Playbook, and I'm here today with Terry McFarland and Jack Knocke. And Terry McFarland is the owner of Seamless Communication Systems, which is a telecom agent and cloud-hosted voice over IP managed service provider in Winter Park, Florida, and their IoT practice. And he also works with IoT vendors to help them build their channels. So welcome, Terry and Jack.
Thanks, Mark.
So, Terry, you guys worked together on a IoT project in the education space, and you currently have about $12 million in the sales funnel right now, working with about 8 schools, and you're trying to sign up more all the time. So, Terry, give me a little bit about your background. Where you come from, the technology space you're in, and then how you decided to get into this IoT and education.
Sure. I'm like most guys in this industry. I started out being a telecom installer, premise-based key systems, and then PBXs, and became a systems engineer at the school district for about 11 years before moving to Florida, and then taking care of Orange County Public Schools for another 7 years or so. But I somewhere in the middle of all that was going to get laid off from Bell South, started my own company. And my partner and I, like everybody else, trying to make a good living at installing phone systems and selling carrier services at the same time as, hate to use the cliche, but dog eat dog world. There's a lot of people out there trying to do it. I've discovered not going to get rich doing it, make a decent living, and lose a lot of hair, as you can see. So, it's pretty tough industry to run around, and especially in Florida, I think.
Why in Florida? Is it real competitive, or?
Yeah, it's very competitive, and I believe based on what I've seen as far as markets go, the price point, there's a lot of cheap folks in Florida don't want to spend a lot of money on the systems and or the services, not like your bigger cities and bigger markets. This state is comprised of mainly attorneys, doctors' offices. That's a big population out here. So another one of those, they want to make a lot of money and don't want to spend a lot of money. So it's pretty tough.
Jack, how about yourself? Tell me about your background and how you got into this whole IoT universe.
Sure. Yeah. My background was in telco, on the carrier side, on the channel side, and I worked with master agencies in the channel side of things. And about 6 years ago, I went out on my own with a consulting business to help IT guys sell telecom and help telecom guys sell IT. And then a couple years ago, really drilled into the IoT space because there was a clear gap in the ability for the channel to participate. There was a gap for the vendors in being able to take some great products and get them to productize them for the channel. So everything I'm doing right now is to help those vendors get their products into the channel and help channel partners understand how to bring those products and services into their practice and be profitable.
So, Jack, how did you end up meeting up with Terry?
Well, we had a mutual friend in the telecom space, And we started talking about IoT, and Terry was one of the guys who put his hand up first and says, I'm really looking for the opportunity to have a new message to my customers, to diversify my product set, and really to try to energize the whole business model. And so we got to talking about that, and one thing led to another, and we really just started figuring out how to get the right things into his business model so that he could be successful.
Yeah. Terry, why don't you add to that? And, it sounds to me like you have a background in the education niche. So,
Right.
so, obviously a way to upsell customers to a new offer and stuff would be a natural fit.
Yeah. So a couple of things. We started out in the IoT space, and one of my largest verticals is the medical field. So initially,
Okay.
Jack and I targeted a lot of the medical IoT offerings. But what we found out was the big corporate, HCAs, SCAs of the world, they're already dabbling in that area. Some of the event health, we went in there, they were different parts of their organization were dabbling in the IoT space. It was going to be a little bit tougher to break into that. I work on the lower end of the big corporate medical world, like the doctor's offices and the surgery centers, but they're still being driven by corporate. So we quickly realized, although I believe there's still a great opportunity out there, and we're kind of trying to figure out how to get in and what our niche might be in there. But at the same time, I was really, really interested in the security, the school security. I worked for Jefferson County Public Schools, like I said, for 11 years, and I was there during Columbine. So it was near and dear to my heart. And so I took an interest in that to begin with. And I just started reaching out to my contacts at the school districts locally, Jeffco in Colorado. And I just stepped back one day and said, I don't know why haven't been focusing on this. I've got so much experience with these guys and what they're doing. And I understand the IT world. Jack had put all the legwork into finding some great offerings and, narrowed it down to a couple specific security offerings that we really like that fit and don't conflict with the IT groups in the public school systems. That's always a concern. And then it kind of just grew from there, right, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. I think your experience in education was invaluable in being able to identify how do we take what you have in your expertise and bolt on an IoT solution. And we're able to find a school security play that is just a very popular product. It connects just about everything in the school to a platform, and it turned out to be a really good match.
And so when you're talking about education, so specifically this would be like K-12 or higher ed?
It's both.
Oh,
It's
okay.
any type of campus environment. And we can get into what that solution is later because it starts with the school system. Right now, we're very focused on the K through 12s, but the opportunity is well beyond just schools and even higher ed.
Okay, so what is it? What's the strategy? What's the offering here that you're offering? And would you say you're in the campus safety space?
Terry, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Well, one other thing I'd like to add to that too, the whole IoT is to me, it's a loose term. So what IoT means to me is, and this is how I got into it, IoT in my world, I believe, ties anything and everything together. The mind can go every direction you can think of, sky's the limit. So the offering that we're using in the school systems for security encompasses that on a great level. It ties all the existing technologies together. You can add, advanced technologies to what you're already using. And so I think what I really like about the school district and the security set systems is, one, we found out really quick, the IT folks don't want to take on another system. This does the complete opposite. This ties everything together and makes one management system on all levels easier for them. And I think that the buy-in on the IT folks in the school districts and what they're trying to do has been awesome. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Jack?
Absolutely. Yeah, if I could bake it down to kind of three things that I like to focus on, and that is, what are we selling? We're selling a security platform for the school that ties every bit of technology in the school together so that when there is an emergency or an intruder, we're able to lock down the building, light up strobe lights, notify everyone. Within 8 seconds, we've got the police department plugged in. So we've got something that's extremely compelling for the schools. It's very compelling for the school superintendent and the board. And it's also very compelling for the sheriff department who wants to secure them. So that's what we're selling. Very compelling model. So then is, how do you make money at it? And with this particular solution, it is an agent commission solution that Terry is working with. And that is, all we have to do is get them in the door, help them understand where the opportunities are, and then they run with it, pay us a commission for every dollar that is sold. There are other resale models out there, but we're using the agent commission model. Now, the other side of that is this is support level, because as an MSP or an agent or whatever model, system integrator, there's a big component of what is your cost to support this type of solution. So with Terry's elected agent model where you get a commission, the company is doing all the support, they're doing all of the setup, but they're also going to hire Terry to do some of that installation work that fits into his expertise. So it gives him the opportunity to not only make his commission, but also work with the vendor to do those parts that he has the expertise as well.
So is it a one-time commission or recurring?
Well, the model is a one-time commission on the sale. The bottom line is, though, there are always upsells. For example, we had a school system that we were talking to a few weeks ago, and we had about a $2 million proposal on the table in front of them. When we got up from the table, they said, I tell you what, can you help us with all of our access controls, which is about a $2 million opportunity as well. So we went with about a $2 million proposal, walked out with an additional $2 million of an opportunity. And that was just the first phase. Obviously, follow-on phases are there as well. And as Terry said, the technology is connecting every aspect of the school. So whether they already have security cameras or access controls or notification systems, whatever they already have, we can leverage them and connect them, but we can also upgrade them over time.
Okay. And so what do you call this type of solution?
Well, it's a connected school. The one button lockdown is the simple name, and that encompasses all of the different technologies.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I think what Jack says, yeah, a particular offering that we have, they call it their one-touch lockdown. But the important thing you want to take from this in the IoT world is the ability to have some software that does tie all these technologies together. And the offering, like Jack was pointing out, is really a la carte. So a lot of the school districts have already put some cameras in. They've already put some access in. We'll use what's already in there and then add to that. And it just keeps growing. And for the agents, I'm an installer by, my career. So I'm more technical, but you don't have to be technical to sell this. Like Jack said, they're going to install it. You're just acting as an agent. I encourage, obviously, if you're in sales, you want to know more about the product you're selling because it's going to make it easier to sell, obviously. But it's not. You can have a 30,000 foot view of this product set and easily sell it and let the manufacturer come in and do all the installation and maintaining it. I just happen to want to take it to another level and get some installation out of it as well. But we're working on a reoccurring model with these folks as well. But like Jack said, I believe the schools are probably going to go in, some of them full blown, which we've seen, and some of them are going to go in with just maybe one part of it. But by the end of the installation, they're already going to be adding on from the menu other items that they want.
I've heard about systems before because, with other magazines I worked on, which was Campus Safety Magazine, and then also commercial integrator, and then security sales and integration, they would call this sort of mass notification emergency communications. And the biggest driver of that was active shooters. Mm-hmm. So that's a use case scenario where active shooter happens. You have to notify, you basically have to tie in all forms of communication and notify people. And then, of course, adding the one button lockdown obviously would be a key thing. And being at Columbine, that was an active shooter scenario, right? So that
right.
Yeah. So is that kind of the driver here? Because active shooters, where they happen, my guess is the interest for this kind of a thing goes through the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in Florida, I don't know how familiar you are with our governor, but as soon as he came in, he was immediately mandating that the schools go back and check all of their, they were funded so much money last year for security. So they're doing audits, and he's mandating that they go and upgrade their security systems and entertain some sort of advanced, like you said, system that will help them in the event of a hostage situation or a shooter or something. And that's exactly what this does. And what you just said, the particular offering that we have, once that is thrown into lockdown, it does everything you said. It ties all communication systems in together, as well as immediately ties them into the 911 control center. So it's a combined effort. The local authorities and the school district together. They go in together on this thing, and it's really pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing offering, with all the crazy ideas people have right now with, arming teachers. That's controversial, right? There's a whole bunch of controversial offerings, metal detectors, all the different types of things. This particular security offering, of all the ones that I researched, is the least controversial and the one that makes the most sense. It's a really well thought out and really nice offering. And we're already hearing people in the school districts and the IT department thinking about how they can use the software to tie in other things, to monitor and censor all their HVAC, their security systems. They've got some other offerings like a door ajar. Kids are going sneaking out the back door. That's also kind of tied into security. But there's where the IoT space comes in, and the sky's the limit with this, not only just to help in the security, but to manage and maintain all of your devices in your school district.
Yeah, so you mentioned you've got started in the K-12, but yeah, I imagine higher ed is a big opportunity too. I definitely know there is a particular regulation that is countrywide called the Clery Act that requires this kind of a system. So it's not, and in fact, they can be fined significant fines for not being able to tie everything in. It's more about the communication side than it is the one button lockdown, whereas I could definitely see in K-12, one button lockdown would be the key sort of trigger point. Mm-hmm. No pun intended there. But so what about, first of all, what do you call this software? Because, one of the other things that people have done, the more sort of sexy front end product, people talk about like the shooter detection systems and things, or that. Did you offer anything like that in it?
So everything they're doing on their Intralogic is the manufacturer, and they call it their one-touch lockdown, but they're doing face recognition. They're scanning license plates. They offer a more advanced, like one of the school districts we're working with, and I think a lot of them are using, you give them your driver's license, you swipe it, it does a little quick security background check. They do a much deeper dive check on the individual at the time. And then the folks that have designed this have a heavy background in this area. One of the gentlemen, if I don't think it's a problem saying this, Jack, but one of the gentlemen that had founded this company, was on the 93 Trade Center. He was the first responder in the Trade Center basement bombing. So they take a big step back approach to not only the technology that's going in there, but they also help the school district assess and design their campus in a secure, safe method that's going to help the authorities show up and easily find their way around the campuses. I don't know if you're hearing that. It's raining really hard here. So if you're getting some feedback, that's what that is. We're in Florida. It doesn't just rain. It dumps. So, but anyway.
So what about the case study? Talk about, where you put this in and how that worked and how you ended up like approaching the decision makers. Who were the decision makers, and did it have to go through like a committee and all that kind of stuff?
Do you want me to go with that, Jack?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So it's interesting. Part of what Jack and I have been doing for the last year and a half is kind of feeling our way through who those decision makers are. And being that I'm more of an IT telecom background, I kind of thought it would be the IT security folks. But fast forward, the people that make the decision on this, the decision makers that drive this, are the local authorities, the local sheriff department, and the actual security guards, the security system. We have one school district where that is the actual local sheriff. We have another school system where they have SRO security. They rent, if you will, the police officers, on campus, but obviously they, work really close with their local sheriff. So in my opinion, you have to get buy-in from the superintendent. If you can start there, that's great. But I have a relationship with the local superintendent, and he immediately referred me elsewhere. What really got this driving was getting in contact with the local sheriff, the police captains in the area. Once you get their buy-in and you walk into the school districts with them, now you're on your way.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We'll take the one school system that has kind of been the best one for us to really get through that whole process, and that is, we started with the director of operations, which was through the IT contacts. That took us to, he's like, I'm going to make whatever decision based on what our in-house sheriff relationship person will do, because they have actually the sheriff's office people in their county. So we got him to talk to us. He said, this is awesome. We've already got a one-button lockdown, but it was just the button. So now we come in and say, we can take this whole platform and manage everything for you. We can take all of your existing cameras and integrate them, all your access controls, integrate them, all of your computers to make sure that we have notifications. So we took a very comprehensive approach. He said, this is awesome. Let's bring you in and talk to our lieutenants. Let's get a demonstration. And one of the key starting points is doing a technology threat vulnerability assessment for that school. And so our folks with Terry will walk all the way through the school and say, do you have classrooms labeled? Do you have door ajar warnings? Do you have access controls? They'll take every aspect of that school, whether it is what you have near the school, fencing, access, signage everywhere. So they're taking this technology threat assessment, is looking all the different technologies and physical security, and going back to the school and reporting back to them and say, here's what you have. Here's what you have that is really good. Here are the vulnerabilities that you have. And here are some of the solutions that we could do to address those vulnerabilities. And that comes in the form of a proposal to say, here's how we can address it, and a recommendation, excuse me, for a phase 1, phase 2 approach with the most important, most priorities that the school indicated and what that threat vulnerability assessment indicated. And that gives us kind of that first proposal day that the vendor can put in front of us and say, here's what the cost would be for that school system to take this first step. What would you want to do?
And I would imagine too, then it sets up uh, some requirements for all their future buying. So, for example, if they were going to do new clocks on the wall that had the little ticker thing that goes by, you want to make sure, hey, it ties into this system, right? I mean, because the sad news is, I'm sure when you start tying all in, you go, oops, sorry, we can't tie that thing in because it doesn't support this standard protocol. And it's, giving the school the news that this thing that little project that they loved doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I've heard that before, by the way, because now you guys coming and get involved. I've heard when other people were buying a whole bunch of different things and not thinking about tying it all in together, they ended up scrapping 100 grand worth of stuff because they couldn't figure out how to tie it in.
Right.
Yeah. So there's certain protocols and things like, hey, the systems you buy must support, well, I suppose in this case, interlogic or something.
Yeah. And in most cases, what they're required to do is to say the school would need to go to their vendor and say, would you give them access to build an API into that system? And so long as that vendor, gives them the access to build the API, everything can happen because they can pretty much connect just about any technology. And one thing I didn't mention is in that process of going to the school and as part of that technology threat assessment, it's a search for grants as well. As Terry said, the governor has put money into this. Many states have different levels of funding and different ways of funding. So one of the things that the vendor does is go and finds grants to help offset some of the costs of the program. So now we're bringing money to the table, which is always a good way to go in.
Sure it is. And as I hear what you're saying too, once you get into sell them on the idea of running the brain of the operations, right? This interlogic. Now, almost every technology buying decision flows through you guys because they don't want to buy anything that doesn't tie into the one button.
Exactly. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. I could see how this would have perpetual upgrading opportunities here. So on the fulfillment side, you mentioned that you work with then local partners to actually put some of this stuff in. You're putting some stuff in. How does all that work? Because I could see some people here is like, wow, I don't have the expertise on all these different things from access control to surveillance cameras to shooter detection systems to all the various components. How does that work?
Right. So that's what I was saying earlier. Not everyone's going to be a technical mind like myself, maybe. I just, I like technology. That's what I've lived in for 30 years. So it was a natural progression for me to get really excited about this stuff. And they actually kind of are approaching me to help install. But going into this, I just kept telling Jack, we need to understand more about and see more demos. When I learn a new product, I like to see several demos. I like to see, because each time I pick up more about it. As a sales agent for this, you don't have to be technical. The thing that I want to drive home is, and most of these IoT offerings, the way that Jack has it structured is fantastic because you have to know enough about recognizing opportunity. You have to know enough about the product, but you're going to bring the manufacturer in and they're going to actually get technical with their IT department, the police department, or same thing with the medical offerings. I do some LED lighting as well. I don't know anything about LED lighting, really. We go through and do an assessment walking through, and the lighting manufacturer is going to take it from there. So you really, from the agent model, you can get the manufacturer in the door, work as a liaison, and then hand it off. And then you just, you're going to receive your reoccurring or your one-time or whatever deal you have with them. It makes it real easy to do.
Yeah. So again, from a business model, you do see you can kind of get in with a project, but what are the reoccurring revenue opportunities? You said access control, and like what were some of the other recurring opportunities?
Yeah. So on the particular offering that we're using, and I think they're going to delve more into that, but they do offer, for instance, a lot of this stuff. You put it in, and then like Jack said, they're going to add to that menu, right? They may do that over the course of, 5, 10 years, who knows? So as they add to that, it's your deal. So like Jack said, we walked in with about a $2 million base board offering to get the systems up and running. And then before we left, they were asking about access controls, which added to that. There's about 8 other or 10 other items they can add all at once, or as they get a budget for it or decide they need it. The other thing they do, they offer the schools are, typically the schools districts have their own security that monitor, during normal business hours, if you will. A lot of them will turn that over and have them monitor weekends, nights, holidays. There's a reoccurring revenue in that as well. But I know that this particular group is working on another type of model to get some more reoccurring. We don't know what that is at this moment. But I just think that the fact that most school districts are probably not gonna, well, I shouldn't say that, because we walk in the door and they're very skeptical with us. The police chief, very skeptical. We're already doing this, we're already doing that. It's just they're appeasing us. And by the time we walk out, they're really interested in adding things immediately. So I was going to say that, a lot of school districts might walk in with the base model and then add on to it. But I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle in the beginning, and then continue to add products and connect all their dots. And like I said, I think it's going to be bigger than that. I believe, based on what we've been hearing, away from the security, they're going to use this software to monitor devices, HVAC, not just their security. So their lighting. I mean, the sky's the limit. That's your IoT space. Sky's the limit of what you can use this for and benefit from it. And every time they do that, we're going to get a piece of it.
So just Mark, if I could just expand, just like an MSP or a VAR, once they are into a client and they've got their trust, it starts expanding. So here's an example. You go into a school system and you've got the school system signed up. Yes, you have your upsell opportunities with them. The sheriff's department is integrated with the school system now, because the sheriff's department is getting a notice as soon as that one-button lockdown is pressed. So the sheriff now has a dispatch center that is tuned into this. So let's think about what that does. Now it says every school system, including the private schools and higher education schools, can now plug into that, because the sheriff's office already has knowledge and interest and is a supporter of that type of thing. So let's think about that. Now we look at the city itself. So now we've got a sheriff's office or the police department that has this tracking and integration software. So now we can extend that to the hospitals, to the corporations, to the city facilities as well. So the expansion of this solution, we're only hitting the tip of the iceberg with the schools. And the opportunity for us to expand that into that community once we have that sheriff on board is amazing. And so it's very similar to that MSP that is into a client and they can get virtually all their clients' business because they all want to plug it in. But there's an extension to that that's really exciting too. It's kind of the IoT world.
So on the pricing and packaging side, once you get in, the school can identify, here's what we've already got approved to do. Here's what we'd like to do, sort of their list. You can put a pricing and packaging around that offer. But by getting in the sort of mass notification or one button operating system, you are now setting yourself up for all future things, because there's nothing that they want to do that won't tie into that system.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
go ahead, Terry.
I was gonna make notice of, because maybe we're not being clear. When you go in with this and you have the local sheriff involved, we're installing a control center in the 911 dispatch area. Monitors, the software, everything. So if school goes into lockdown, the 911 dispatch immediately gets an alert from that school. They've got maps, live video feeds. They control the door locking, and so on and so forth. So what Jack was saying, now they've got a control center already at the 911 dispatch. The police department's tied in. Now you move to that city, that town. They've already got their control center built. So now it's a matter of what else do they want to tie into that. So it really it's exponential at that point.
So a couple more things. So how on access control and surveillance, is there any demand coming from the schools about AI? Because I imagine they would have a push-pull with that. On one side, they're scared about the personally identifiable information, PII. On the other hand, the amount of manpower to sit there watching screens all the time is expensive, and it's not like they got a big budget. So do you see AI fitting in?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. And what we're using here is different school districts have different, rules and regulations. Obviously, they don't want to necessarily capture everyone's um, facial recognition or facial profile. But what they can do, and this is one of the products that we have, is they can identify those blacklisted folks or blacklisted license plates that are restricted from the school. So once they come within the school grounds, they get caught up in the camera. It says this person should not be here, and then they can start the process of addressing that. That's obviously not able to be handled by a person watching cameras 24/7. Most times,
Right.
the resource officer is on the campus or moving around. So this is a great advantage for the artificial intelligence, where it can be tracking some of those bad guys that we know we want to keep up with.
Yeah, and the other thing that I heard you say, Mark, was in it was about monitoring all the screens is too much for one. That's their whole model. What's great about this product is you have a Google Maps, you have a map of the campus, and you have of every building. And when you're looking at it on the screen, it's just a map, and it's got building A, B, C, D, for instance, room 101, 201, 301. When you get an alarm, it alerts the school, the building, the municipality, if you will, and you drag your mouse over that, it goes away from the map and the normal like blueprint, and it gives you a live feed. That's one of the things that they love about their product. What I love about their product is it is too much to watch all these monitors. So only focus on the ones that are showing an alarm and having a problem at that particular time. And I think that's a great point to make about this.
So have you guys put in that AI system yet, or is it in the pipeline, or where's that at?
It has been deployed by the vendor. We haven't necessarily deployed it ourselves yet.
Okay, but is it tied into the InLogic system? And
Absolutely.
okay,
Absolutely.
Everything.
All right, cool. So, all right, well, that's good. And so, recommendations. I mean, I could hear one set of things, because the lingo that you need to work with the schools. I mean, you got all these different actors that play in, right? So the sort of superintendent level, who's not really going to be technical. Got the IT guy, but you sort of let the manufacturers geek out with them a little bit. The sheriff probably is not that technical. So, I mean, it would be better to learn the lingo from a magazine like Campus Safety Magazine than it would be to jump in with a bunch of techno babble when you're in the selling process.
Yeah, so I think again, I might be technical, and I actually I was, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but when Columbine happened, I worked with the FBI and the local authorities for a year to design the 911 emergency manual, specifically in telecommunications. When we owned our own central office, Columbine happened. The police wanted to take over all the communication. They couldn't. So I learned a lot on how they kind of react and stuff. So I had a little bit of an insight on that. But really, this product in and of itself, I didn't know anything about it. And one of the roadblocks you run into right now, even with the contacts that I have, and going in through the IT, and like you said, the superintendent, they're not super technical. You don't have to be super technical and 100% know the security. However, these guys are getting their email, their door knocked on, so to speak, every single day by similar products. So by just getting the ear of the local authorities, however that might be, either that's the local police chief, like I think in most of the country, there's a paid for policeman on each school campus, for instance. I know in Florida that's very prevalent. If you can at least get their ear, get their interest, and then we bring the manufacturer in, now they speak the language. And the police officers and the FBI agents and the people that we've seen at the security conventions, once they see what we're offering, it takes off, because it's truly amazing, and it's a cut above a lot of the other ones that we've run into. But we're not speaking that speak and walking the walk. We're just, you're in sales, you've got to get in the door. You can get your foot in the door, get their attention. The people that at the manufacturer that have been doing this, since back in, I think, 2002, and been involved in this in a lot of levels, they're the ones that they're talking the same language, and they're explaining it to them, and they're taking off. I don't know that I could boast that I would be able to walk in there. Technically speaking, I could, but let's be honest, the police officer's looking at me like you're just another IT geek or a telecom guy, trying to sell me something. When you talk first responder to first responder, now you have a whole nother communication path going on that takes off.
And so for you guys, did you sell at like a district level, or and then you ended up picking up those, all the schools there? Is that how that worked? Or did you go sell one school and then say, hey, look what we did for this school, we can do something similar for you?
Yeah, it's a little of both. We're really, in Florida, the school system is kind of the buying entity. So the school system may have 20 schools or 200 schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the school systems that are in place are some of the larger ones. And we've also talked to private schools that are very interested in this as well. So it hits the whole gamut. But once you get that school system, they're a great testimonial for everybody else. We find that the local sheriff is an excellent testimonial for everybody else too.
Right.
There you are, the local sheriff, man.
Can't argue with him.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, thanks for sharing. I mean, that sounds like a major breakthrough that you guys had, the big aha, which is, hey, and there might be an actual sheriff that's the campus guy, and then I don't know, but if you get him on board, then that's who everybody defers to.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that in the IoT space, Mark, that rings true in every area you're going into. Finding the right verbiage that gets someone's ear, and sometimes that might not be the actual decision maker, but they might get you there. If you get the person in the medical field that's in charge of just saving money in general, they might be interested in LED lighting offering or something, right? You get the asset management person, or the person that's the driver in that. You've got to figure out that niche and that space, and get the right buzzword, if you will, to get their ear. And then after that, it usually takes off. The manufacturer and that person will kind of run with it. But that's true in all sales everywhere.
So, Jack, given that you're in the business of helping partners like Terry, do this kind of thing and sort of navigate it, you've obviously learned a ton about this specific use case and stuff. How would, if someone were to get a hold of you, what's the kind of the process, and like, do you have a free strategy call or something like that? How would that work if they wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely. That's typically the first step that I would take with anyone, is just sit down and have a free strategy call where we talk about their business, what the opportunities are, what their goals are, and seeing what direction they may want to go. Is this really right for them or not? But I have other levels as well. I'll do a consulting quick start with someone where we take the first 90 days and just really focus on their business strength, their vertical markets, go-to-market relationships, their internal processes, and sales technologies. And we'll get them introduced to the right vendors. Because the first thing that I would say to anyone listening is, don't go to the first vendor you see. You want to go with someone that has a great product that's compelling, that has a channel program where you can make some money, and that's going to have the right support model with you. Because channel partner is different messaging from one vendor to the other. So you're going to want to make sure that it matches up with you. And I'll also do some strategic consulting with folks in the 6 to 12 month scenario where I'll help them all the way through the implementation process. And one of the things that we're really excited about is some of the peer groups that we're setting up so that we can take 8 or 12 MSPs that we'll call IoT MSPs, put them in a peer group and let them play off of each other and learn from each other and get presentations from vendors so that they can kind of grow their business with a peer group to help them as well.
Right. And I'll put links in the show notes to exactly how to get in touch with you.
Great, thanks.
And then Terry, any last words, last thoughts here, working with Jack and this particular opportunity?
Sure. Jack's been awesome. It's been a kind of a really cool journey over the last year and a half. And, I guess the one thing I like to say is there's a lot of people dabbling in the IoT world, but none of them have a really good direction. My advice and what the approach I'm taking right now is I'm trying to learn. I've pretty much, we're narrowing it down to certain product sets in each vertical, right? Medical, the school security, and so on. And then trying to help the customer. There's a lot of opportunity consulting because, like I said, a lot of people they have different departments in their corporate organization that might be trying some IoT stuff, maybe asset management, maybe, like I said, lighting, maybe security. Help those folks, consult with them and help them tie it all together. So even though they might already be working with a product they really like, that doesn't mean you've lost the opportunity. Walk in there and try to help them and guide them in tying all those technologies together. And there's a good, consulting has some good dollars wrapped around it as well. And that, I think you'd agree, Jack, right? That's the common tune everywhere we've gone in is, oh, we're already trying that, we're doing this, that, but no one's talking to each other. No one's even thinking about tying it all in together under a single management platform or, and that's where I think I fell into communications. At the end of the day, it all is tied back to some type of communication, whether it's, SMS, text, voice over IP, video, but tying all those systems together, there's a lot of people out there playing and they haven't even thought of that.
Well, great, guys. This has been super amazing and exciting opportunity. And I'll put links to every, all the vendors and different ways of getting a hold of you, Jack, in the show notes. Appreciate it, guys. And it sounds like an exciting, growing opportunity that's really just starting to take off, I think.
You bet. Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.